So step 4 is the next step in treating this disease. So if I'm open and I'm willing and I'm having this experience because of steps 1, 2, and 3, I start to do step 4. You can't do step 4 without step 3. There's no way to be searching and fearless without the power, because the ego says, no way, we're too afraid, we're not looking there. We're not going to go there. And then the 4th step is laid out really, really clearly in the big book. It asks some great questions to jar your memory in the 12 and 12. But what it does say in the 12 and 12 is that that what's wrong with me is my instincts. My instincts have gone awry. It says, creation gave me instincts for a purpose. Without them, I wouldn't be a complete human being. If I didn't exert myself to be secure in my person, if I made no effort to harvest food or construct shelter, there'd be no survival. If I didn't reproduce, the earth wouldn't be populated. If I had no social instinct, if I cared nothing for society or one another, there would be no society. So these desires for sex relations, for material and emotional security, and for companionship are perfectly necessary and right and surely God-given. So I have instincts, God-given instincts. You know, my sponsor pounded into my head. He said, you look at the world, the earth, everywhere man isn't, it works perfectly. The birds know when it's time to go south, to go migrate to the south, to get out of the winter, right? The whales know when it's time to go to Maui for the winter. And they just go. They don't argue. They don't build pens to hold their little fish in so they could stay for the winter in Alaska and tough it out. If they do, they die. They just die. So they go when it's time to go, and they don't even know why. They just know it's time to go, and they don't argue because there's no argument, because they don't have free will. Free will is will free of God. They do God's will. When they're instinctually driven to go, they go. They mate where they're supposed to mate. They calve where they're supposed to calve. How they get to Maui, it's impossible. They leave Alaska and they get to Maui and they have no GPS. They just get there and they go there every year. And they don't, when they're in Maui, they don't eat. And I don't think they worry about food. You know, they're not all depressed, worrying about when their next meal is going to come from and why do we have to wait till spring to eat again. They just have their babies. They do what they're supposed to do. They jump out of the water and they're happy as can be down there in Maui if we don't kill them. And then when it starts warming up, they swim back to Alaska and the krill is there waiting for them and they eat. It just works perfectly. And the whole world is like that, wherever man isn't. It's the free will thing that gets me all messed up. So what I get to do is I get to align my will with God's will so my life can work as perfectly as the whale's. And it's already all there. All the instincts are there where I just read about them. The instincts are there. The problem is that me as an alcoholic, I need more of everything. I need more sex. I need more security. I need more material security. I have enough. I just need more. We went for a walk yesterday, and all we could do is complain about the $3 million flats that we're never going to be able to afford that we were looking at off the hill, right? But we have a place to live, and it's warm, and it's comfortable, and it's good enough. Only that I say, no, I'm supposed to be over there. So step 4 is the beginning of a look at my instincts gone crazy. And it's also where I make a list of the people that I harmed. And it's kind of a trick. I'm going to let you know in advance. Because whoever you put down on that list, you see, I put down everyone I hated, everyone I'm angry with, everyone that bothered me, every institution and every principle that I have a problem with. I put it all down on paper in black and white. It's a 4-step. You know, I was 23 years sober, and I've been part of Primetime for, 20 years. 17, 20 years, I don't know. A lot of years I've been part of Primetime, and that was mostly where I went, and I've heard the message delivered the way I'm delivering it now over and over and over and over. And believe it or not, I was sick of it. And I heard a guy sharing, and what he shared was, what I heard him say that got my attention was, he said, if you're having a problem in step 4, the problem isn't in step 4. It's because you haven't done step 3. And if you have a problem with step 3, your problem isn't in step 3. It's because you haven't done step 2. Because when you do step 2, step 3 is no problem. And the same thing with 4. And so I got interested in this guy, and I said, I like the way you're sharing. Where did you learn this? He says, I run a workshop. I'm 23 years sober, and I know everything about AA because I've been in prime time. And something said, you need to go to that workshop. And it was an 8-month workshop. I didn't say one word for 8 months. I just listened. I just soaked it up. And the man's name is Dan S., and he has a website called all12steps.com or thejaywalker.com. And it'll be on the tape, or you'll make this available. And he has a book called The Big Book Awakenings, and I have it. It's in my bag. And he goes through the big book basically line by line. Line by line. This is a companion to the big book. Line by line, and turns everything into questions. And it's unbelievably tedious and incredibly minute, like weird, crazy work. But I did it, and I learned so much about the program with 23 years. And he has a way of doing the 4-step. And I learned how to do the 4-step from him at 23 years of sobriety in a way that is like what people have said about their lives being transformed coming to this thing. My life was transformed at 23 years going to his workshop. And we brought sheets. Maybe we could just take a look at them. We brought a sheet for everybody. And but while he's handing that out, I'm going to keep talking, because the 4-step, the first instruction is the 4-step in the big book. At the end of the 3rd step, it says, next I launched on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. If I don't do the personal house cleaning, like I said before, I'm going to be stuck in steps 1, 2, 3, back to 1. 1, 2, 3, back to 1. 1, 2, 3, back to 1. Because what's wrong with me is not alcohol. And I've described what the disease looks like, but the particulars, my delusions and my fears, are what I get to see in step 4. The things that really drive me. One of my delusions that I found through doing this 4-step, one of the delusions that I found for myself was I did this 4-step, right? So if you look at this, I'm going to go through one of mine with you so you can see how this 4-step works, okay? I'm going to have to find the right one. Okay. I'm going to go through a 4-step now. This is mine. This is one of my resentments. So I do a page for every resentment, one of these pages. And I'll just go through it a little bit so we can talk about it. So the first instruction in the 4-step is at the bottom of page 64. It says, resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For I have not only been mentally and physically ill, I have been spiritually sick. Those are all questions. Do I believe resentment is the number one offender? If I don't do it. Why do it? But take a look at your resentments and see how much trouble they cause you, and see if it's not true for you, right? Does it destroy me more than anything else? That's a question. Am I physically and spiritually and mentally sick? Am I from alcohol and alcoholism? Then it says, in dealing with these resentments, I set them on paper. Column 1, I list the people I'm resentful at, right? So I make a list of all the people. Column 2 is then I take those people from column 1 and I move them over to column 2, and then I make a list of all the things I resent that person for. And then I can, like with my parents, I had so many resentments, and I was able to narrow those resentments down to group them into things like abandonment and physical abuse or mental abuse or being judgmental, whatever it was, because there were a lot of instances of the same thing, and I don't want to have to do a page for everyone. But I'm going to do the guy who bought my house. I sold a house. And the guy who bought my house, and I resented him because he wanted a reduction for some things that weren't to code. And then after I did the reduction and I sold him the house, he leveled the house. That just rubbed me the wrong way. And that house was in my backyard. I owned my house and the house right behind my house at one point. So I got to live my resentment every day. So those are the first 2 columns, right? The person I resent and the reason I resented him. And then it says that in most cases, I found that it was my self-esteem, my pocketbook, my ambition, or my personal relationships, including sex, which were hurt or threatened. So I was sore, I was burned up. On my grudge list, I set opposite each name my injury. Was it my self-esteem, my security, my ambition, my personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? Okay, so if you look at this paper now, set opposite each name, except for that it goes down the page. So this is the 3rd column. And it says self-esteem, right? And then it says pride and ambition and security and personal relations and sex relations. And I'm just going to go through mine. And you can have a look at this. And then, if you want to go deeper into the 4-step, because we would take a whole weekend to do a 4-step workshop. But I just want you to see what's happening in the 4-step, doing it this way. So self-esteem, how I see or feel about myself. Now, it's a very well-known myth in Alcoholics Anonymous that we have low self-esteem. Everyone says, I have low self-esteem. I need to have more self-esteem. And I don't think that's the case. And what was pointed out to me is that the reason I have resentments is because I have incredibly high self-esteem. Because if my mom made me feel like I was stupid, and I was, in fact, had low self-esteem and thought of myself as stupid, I would say, yep, she's right. I'm stupid. And that'd be the end of it. But I don't say that. I have incredibly high self-esteem. I think I'm the best son she could ever hope for. How dare she treat me like I'm stupid? She just can't see the smart things in me. She thinks getting an A on a test makes someone smart, but I can make a skateboard out of a piece of wood. I'm smart. She just doesn't know how smart I am. She's stupid. I hate her. It's kind of how it works, right? So in this case, with the businessman, with the guy I was selling the house to, I wrote that I am the best businessman in all situations. And my inner fear is that I'm not good enough, that people are going to take advantage of me, right? So you see how that works? So there's a self-esteem component to how I treated this guy doing business. And then pride, how I think others should see or feel about me. And it says the role I've assigned others. Sentences start with things like others should or no one should or others can. So no one should try to trick me. That was a trick, right? To make me give them a discount on the house for stuff that wasn't to code and then wipe the house out completely. That was a trick. No one should try to trick me. That's the way I think the whole world should treat me. No one should think that they can out-negotiate me. That's the way I see the world. And my fear is that I'm not smart enough. I wonder where I got that. Ambition, what I want to happen here. So what I want to happen is I want others to respect and revere me. And my fear is that I'm not respectable. Now we're starting to see the 100 forms of fears that I'm driven by. They're starting to pop up on the right side of the column. Most I don't know. I've done about 4 or 5 4 steps. I did one that was just a story that was completely useless, and I don't know how my sponsor sat through it. And then I did one that's right like the book. And then for self-esteem, if it affected my self-esteem, I put a little check in the self-esteem box. Have you done the box one where you check off the boxes? And that's all I did was, oh yeah, it affected my pocketbook, check. My sex relations, yeah, okay. And it's a check off thing and has no connection to me personally. It's just checking off boxes. Yeah, I can do that. That's easy. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. So now I'm looking at ambition. How does it affect my ambition? How does it affect my security? What I need to be okay here, security. What I need to be okay. I need people to do what I want for me to be okay. I need to be in control for me to be okay. Those are the things that I need in this around this resentment to be okay. And then my fear is that I'm out of control. And it's black and white. All right. If I want people, if I need to be in control to be okay, then my fear is that I am out of control. Personal relations. My deep-seated belief about how this relationship is supposed to look. Business people should do the right thing. Right? That's the way I see the world. And then my fear is being cheated. Sex relations. So sex relations, now, I don't know if this is the right way to do a 4-step, but this was a life-changing thing for me with 23 years of sobriety, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. Sex relations, this is not about sex. This is about how I relate to the sexes. The way that I see my deep-seated belief about how a real man is supposed to be. So a real man, in my eyes, commands the respect of others. If I was a real man, that guy would have never done that in my backyard. He would have had too much respect for me and seen that I was a real man, and he would never have tried to negotiate me down and then trash the house. Do you understand what I'm saying? A real man commands the respect of others. A real man, the way I see a real man is John Wayne, right? In one of his great movies. He walks into the bar and the women all want to sleep with him and the men are all a little bit afraid of him. And they want to do whatever he wants. And they want to be his best friend because they know if he's their best friend that he'll protect them. That's the guy. That's the guy I want to be. That's the guy I think I should be. And everyone should see me as that. And they don't. And then pocketbook. This one was affected my pocketbook. Most of them don't. But in this case, no one should ask me to go down on my sale price. They should just accept whatever price I said. It should be the fair price because I said so, and you should just be okay with it. And then my fear is not being taken seriously. Okay, so that's the front side. That's the fun side. It's all good and fun over here. Then you turn it over, and it's the realization. And so in the book it says, I turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. I prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle, the whole other side of the page. I began to see that the world and its people really dominated me. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, have the power to actually kill. To kill me. That deal could have killed me. I was so upset about that money that it could have killed me. I felt like such a loser after that happened that it was very hard to live with me in my house, me and my family. I saw that I had to master this resentment, but how? I could not wish them away any more than I could alcohol. This was my course. I have a realization. I realized that the people who wronged me were perhaps spiritually sick. Though I didn't like their symptoms and the way they disturbed me, they, like myself, were sick too. So now I look back at the list and I look at my side of it. How am I sick like they are? What do I do that's the same that they did to me in that resentment? So I looked at this resentment and I thought, I'm always working to get myself the best deal by whatever means necessary. That's who I am. I do that I did it to him and to others. I do it everywhere in my life. I always try to get the best deal. I avoid, okay. I'm just going to finish this couple of paragraphs here. Okay. I ask God to show me the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended in the moment, I could say, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God saved me from being angry. That's a new character. Thy will be done. Instead of attacking them, I could actually pray for them. Then it says, I avoid retaliation or argument. I wouldn't treat sick people that way. If I do, I destroy my chance of being helpful. I'm going to skip a little bit. It says, referring back to my list, putting out of my mind the wrongs others had done, I resolutely look for my own mistakes. Where had I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? This is where it gets really weird. I have to look for my self-seeking. What were my selfish attitudes in this resentment? Is this okay? Are you guys with me? Is it? Okay. What were my selfish activities? What did I do? Well, first of all, I badmouthed that gentleman. I gossiped about him. I found fault with him. I overpriced the house to start with. And so that was, I didn't have a lot of bad behavior around it, but I did gossip about the man, and I did have violent thoughts towards him, and I did overprice the house to start with. So that's the part that I played in the resentment. And then selfish. What was my selfish thinking while I was doing the above actions? Well, my selfish thinking was, some sucker will buy this junk house for a huge price in this market, because the market was going crazy. And I thought, I can get as much as I can get for this house now. This is the time to sell it because they're buying everything, right? So I have this selfish attitude of, I can get some sucker to buy this house overpriced and make good money. And then you go to dishonest. What were the lies I was telling myself that resulted in my selfish thinking above? And here's the lie that I was telling myself, that if I back down at all on my price, that I'm less of a man. See, I have this delusion. I have a lie that I tell myself that if I don't get the best price in every deal that I do, that I'm less of a man. And so what that does is it ruins my business life completely, because no matter what deal you agree to, that's the one you agreed to. There's got to be a better one. So I keep pushing, and I keep pushing, and I keep pushing, and I'm never satisfied, because I think if I don't get the best deal, if it's the one you agreed to, it can't be the best one. There's got to be a better one. And so I have trouble in every area of my business life. And when I saw that, it was like, oh my God, that's who I am everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I feel like everybody's trying to rip me off, and they're all trying to get the best deal. I can never, ever be at peace about anything. We took a cab over here yesterday because Neil's car wouldn't start, and I was already feeling cheated. And then he didn't really know what he was doing. He wasn't a very good cab driver. And then he told us the price, and he read it on a telephone. I'm like, that's not a meter. Where'd that price come from? And I think Neil had the same feeling. It was like, wait a minute. I got that sense that we were being overcharged. And, that used to make me crazy. It was pretty much a non-event for me. I don't know about Neil.
Huge.
But that's where I am. And then, so that's the dishonest part of my resentment, my dishonesty. And then my fear. What are the fears that drive the delusion above? And my fear, every single resentment, my fear is that I'm really a loser and that nobody's going to want to be around me. That's my fear. That's my deep, dark fear. And that fear that I'm a loser and no one wants to be around me, that drives the delusion that if I ever back down on a deal, I'm less of a man. And that delusion drives the selfish attitude that I can get some sucker to buy this house for whatever price I say. And that drives my selfish, self-seeking behavior that I overpriced the house to begin with. So the resentment was really all mine. The guy was just doing what guys do. That's business. There's a negotiation involved in buying a house, just not with me, not my house. You can negotiate on whatever house you want, but not mine. That's the price. You buy it or I'm a loser. So that's a fourth step that I got something unbelievably, an insight out of. And I did about 8 at 23 years sober that were mind-blowing like that. And so you have the pages, and the instructions are in the book. And it's a great way to do the 4th step, especially if you have time and you've done 4 steps, to really see what are the delusions? What are the delusions that drive me? The lies that I tell myself that I believe are true. I didn't know it was a delusion. I thought it's true. So then it talks about fear. I review my fears thoroughly. I put them on paper. Again, I write them out, even if they're not connected with any resentments. And I have to ask myself why I have these fears. Why am I so fearful? And the answer, they wrote the answer in the book. It's an open book question test. The answer's right there. But I have to, just because it says it in the book doesn't mean it's true for me. I have to put it on. I got to try it on. It says, I asked myself why I have these fears. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed me? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us, like myself, had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made me cocky, it was worse. Isn't that true? So true. Like when I think I know and I'm all self-confident, this is the right price for this house, take it or leave it. He's like, okay, see you later. It just makes it worse. When I'm cocky, people want to see me fail. They're like, oh, whatever, I'll do whatever I can to help you fail. Because of that cockiness. That's my experience with it. But that self-reliance has always failed me. Everything I ever tried to do came apart in the end because of my alcoholism. Because of myself. I couldn't follow through. I had moral and philosophical convictions galore, and I can't live up to them. Because self-reliance has always failed me. And then there's a great paragraph in the 4th step. Perhaps there's a better way. We think so. For I am now on a different basis. The basis of trusting and relying upon God. I trust infinite God rather than my finite self. I'm in the world to play the role that He assigned. Just to the extent that I do as I think He would have me and humbly rely on Him, does He enable me to match calamity with serenity. Trust the whole, right? We're right back to trusting and relying on God. Trusting and relying. That's not believing. That's beyond believing. I don't care what you believe in. It's what are you doing? Are you trusting and relying on God for your life? Or are you trusting and relying on self? If you're trusting and relying on self, and self-reliance has always failed you, there's a little flaw in your approach. If you're an alcoholic with alcoholism, like me. So trusting and relying is a way of life. It's not a belief. You can't talk about it. You have to do it. And it comes out of seeing who I am in the 4th step, seeing all my delusions and all my fears. Then it does a sex inventory. And the sex inventory is not necessarily about what kind of kinky sex I had. It doesn't say that. It's about how do I relate to the people that I'm having relations with. How do I relate to them? And there's a bunch of questions. I'm not going to go through them because you can read the book. But I got to ask myself these questions regarding every relationship. And they're terrible questions. I mean, they're terrible from self's point of view. I'll read some of them. I subject each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? Oh, before that, I reviewed my own conduct over the years past. Where had I been selfish in my relationships? Where had I been dishonest in my relationships? Inconsiderate? Whom did I hurt? Did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where was I at fault? What should I have done instead? As a way of life. And you're not allowed to answer what should I have done instead with not get in that relationship. That might be obvious, but if you really look at it and what could I have done instead in the relationship to be a better partner? In the 12 and 12, I know this is at this point your brain is probably starting to melt down with information, but I'm just going to read one more thing about the fourth step. Okay. In the fourth step, it says, we thought conditions drove us to drink. Remember, I talked about that a little bit. We've covered most of this already, and it's going to get a little redundant, but I thought conditions drove me to drink, and when I tried to correct these conditions and found that I couldn't to my entire satisfaction, my drinking went out of hand and I became alcoholic. It never occurred to me that I need to change myself to meet conditions, whatever they are. That's a principle in the fourth step. To change myself to meet the conditions the way they are. To accept this life exactly the way it is right now. And then it says this. It goes through all these questions that you have to ask yourself in the fourth step if you want to do the long version of your life story. But it says, but it is from my twisted relations with family and friends and society at large that I have suffered the most. I have been especially stupid and stubborn about them. The primary fact that I fail to recognize is my total inability to form a true partnership with another human being. My egomania digs two disastrous pitfalls. Either I insist upon dominating the people I know, or I depend upon them far too much. And then it goes on to say how that dependence, if I'm depending on people, eventually they fail me. And if I dominate them, eventually they get sick of me and they run away. And the fourth step, in my opinion, is really the first step for grown-ups. The first step is for brand new baby alcoholics, right? You just walked in off the street, you've been drinking recently, and okay, your life is unmanageable, right? Yes. And you can look at the 20 reasons why your life was unmanageable. And that's a beginning, and now you've done something, and you're in the game. But the fourth step, I got to look back now at my life. I got to really look at my life and the character that I am and see how my life is unmanageable by me. How could I possibly manage my life? I can't do a business deal with anybody because I have to get the best deal. And I have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. That makes for an unmanageable life. I wouldn't have sold that house. I couldn't have done it. Except for that a moment of clarity. So, step 4 is where I really, really start to become constitutionally capable of seeing who I really am. With the help of a sponsor, I get through step 4. And then I do step 5, where I share this story with another human being. And part of that sharing the story is telling them everything about me, holding nothing back. And in step 5, there's a principle. I'm just going to read the principle because I'm sure your brains are exploding. You know, it talks about, in step 5, it's all about the reason why you want to find the right person and you want to tell the right person everything about you. And it says that says this about step 5, and this is who I was my whole life. It says, I always discover that relief never came by confessing the sins of other people. I have to confess my own. Relief. You know that relief that I try to feel better about myself by gossiping and by finding fault and by blaming everybody and everything for everything in my life. And I think that that's another delusion that I have. That if I can find what's wrong with you, I'll feel okay about me. If I can show all your defects, then I'll be okay. But the book says it in black and white. I can find no relief. Relief never came by confessing the sins of other people. I have to confess my own. The 5th step, the 4th step looks like we're going to, yippee, we get to write down everyone we hate and why we hate them. Isn't this great? I love that part because I got a lot of people. Oh, okay. I got a lot of people that I hate. I got a lot of them, and I like to write them down, and I like to tell everybody about the people that I hate. It's one of my joys as an alcoholic. With alcohol, it's where I think I find relief. It feels good in the moment to talk bad about somebody else. It always feels dirty later, especially when you see that person, and then you smile and say, hi, it's nice to see you. I just ripped you to shreds 2 minutes ago. And then I can say, oh yeah, that's the guy. I'm not so bad. Look, that's the guy. So that was a really important lesson, life lesson for me, a principle that I can find no relief by confessing the sins of others. Should I finish this, or you want to take the break right now? Right now, break. Everybody, run outside.
We're going to take a 15-minute break for teas and refreshments. People who want to go and have a smoke, and we're going to come back and do questions and answers.
Okay,
Yeah?
sure. We'll finish step 5, and then we'll do questions.
Okay. So 15 minutes.